そんなことないわよ。今まで顔を合わせなかったのは空前でしょ。知ってる？エミヤくんと私の家、きっかり正反対の位置にあるの。だから普通に起きて普通に坂を降りれば、ここで顔を合わせるのは当然ってわけ。へ
え、それは初耳だ。そっか、それなら確かに。
Wait a minute. That's only possible if our daily schedules are the same. For Tosaka to reach this intersection at this hour, she'd have to wake up at 6 in the morning. But that's...
登坂、お前、眠くない？
I just come right out and say it.
何よその言い分。私は眠くもないし無理もしてないわ。なんだってそんなこと聞くわけ？あなた。
いや、お前朝弱かったから。寝不足で学校に行くと化けの皮が剥がれるぞ。授業中に居眠りなんかしたら大変だ。下手に起こそうものなら寝起きの悪魔みたいな顔した登坂が暴れるんだからな。
Like, who dares disturb my slumber kinda terrifying.
そんなことしないわよ。たかだか30分の早起きで不覚なんて取るものですか。
ほら早起きしてるじゃないか、やっぱり。
もう人の起床時間なんてどうでもいいでしょ。つまんない詮索をしてる暇があるならさっさと学校に行きなさい。
Tosaka huffs and looks away. She has a point, so I'm gonna let this go and just resume our walk to school. We walk up the hill. The townscape below has bloomed into springtime scene. The breeze is pleasant, and the leaves of the cherry blossom tree planted near school dance on the wind from the time to time. It makes you smile.
何？今週はほとんどバイトなの？まあエミヤくんの時間だから文句はないけど、そんなんで体壊さない？
え？いや、今日ぐらいは休みをもらったよ。弓道部で新入部員の歓迎会をやるっていうから、イリアを連れて遊びに行こうかなと。
なんかさりげにすごい度胸してるわよね、あなたって。平気な顔してイリアを学校に連れて行くあたり大物だわ。
なんかまずいか？イリアだって暇つぶしになるって喜ぶと思うんだが。
まずいわよ。まずいけど、そういうことなら私もお邪魔しようかな。イリアがいるなら退屈しないし、何より危なっかしくって放っておけない。
I'm grateful to hear her say that. Tosaka understands Ilya much better than Sakura or I do. It's not just that she periodically checks in on Ilya's health. Tosaka and Ilya are both proper mages. Ilya still doesn't fully understand that she needs to hide the fact that she's a mage, so Tosaka's been a great mentor for her in that regard. And so, things are starting to settle in their respective places. The new priest the church dispatched has already repaired most of the damage from the Holy Grail War, and we've more or less gotten back into our ordinary lives. There are things lost that we can never get back, yes, but the wounds are slowly healing, and I should be glad to know that some of the regrets I felt before are slowly fading.
けど、意外だったな。
Tosaka mutters under her breath. She looks down at the town, her tone serious.
意外だったって何が？
私、シロはもっと落ち込むと思ってた。しばらくは立ち直れないだろうなって思ってたのよ。
She's talking about the girl who's not with me now. It's been 2 months, and this is the first time we brought up the golden-haired girl.
そうだな。俺もそうなるだろうって思ってた。その後のことなんて考えるだけでどうかしそうだった。
けど、蓋を開けてみれば、シロったら今まで通りだったでしょ。落ち込むどころの話じゃなくて、次の日にはもうケロリとしてた。その時にね、こいつ大丈夫かなとも思ったのよ。うまく言えないんだけど、次の日には あっさり事故で死んじゃうような雰囲気だった。
なんだそりゃ。なんで平気なのにあっさり死ぬんだよ。
そういうこともあるの。人間ってのはね、何かの手違いで一生涯の目標を叶えちゃうと、それでぽっくりいくものなのよ。もう生きるのはいいやと思った途端、赤信号なのに車が突っ込んできたり、あっさりと階段から落ちたりするんだから。
Huh. That's a little hard to get my head around. I guess she's talking about dying after living a full life or resting in peace, maybe.
だから私はそれが心配だった。ああいう時はね、いっそ派手に落ち込んでくれた方が周りは安心するものなの。
なんだ。じゃあ落ち込んでたら慰めてくれたのか、登坂。
まさか。背中に蹴り入れて一日で立ち直らせてやったわよ。それができなくて残念だって話。
That's Tosaka, alright. She turns away displeased. It's so funny. I can't help bursting into laughter.
何よ、おかしい？
いや、とにかく登坂らしい厳しいセリフだったんで安心した。
We continue walking, enjoying the spring sunshine. The hilly road is long, and it looks as if it continues into the endless blue sky. Then she brings something else up, surprisingly casually.
じゃあもう未練はないんだ。セイバーがいなくなってもさ。
Her eyes are on the sky as she speaks.
ああ、未練なんてきっとない。
I'm not trying to put up a front. I even surprised myself with how at peace I sound. Nothing was left unsaid, so I don't regret anything. Everything went into the moment we said goodbye. What I wanted to do. What she dreamed. Maybe we were both stubborn, and maybe I really should have grabbed her hand and made her dream come true. But there was something we both felt was beautiful, and we both desperately tried to protect it until the very end. I have no regrets. As she properly ended her time, I can't let myself be stuck in those memories forever.
ふん、シローの中では決着をつけたってことね。だから落ち込むこともなく、思い出に浸ることもないってわけ。
なあ、けど今も夢に見る。これから先もずっとあいつのことを思い出すよ。いつか記憶が薄れて、あいつの声もあいつの仕草も忘れていく。それでもこんなことがあったと、セイバーっていうやつが好きだったってことだけはずっと覚えてる。
Tosaka doesn't say a thing, but for some reason she looks elated. She's practically skipping now.
どうしたんだよ登坂、そんなに急いで。なんかあったのか？
別に、ただ早く学校に着きたいなって。さ、そういうわけだからシローも急ぐ。のんびりしてると置いてくわよ。
She turns around and starts to run up the hill.
なんだあいつ、朝弱いくせに無理して。
I grumble, then sling my bag onto my shoulder and run to catch up. It's only 7:30 in the morning. It's too early for students who aren't involved in any club activities, but I guess there's nothing wrong with getting to school early. I run up the hilly road that seems to stretch into the sky, and I reach the school earlier than usual. Today is the first day of the school year. If I want to celebrate, I need to shake off old memories. Remnants of my memory will never go away, but I still need to go on, even if the emptiness in my heart makes me cry. The blue sky is off in the distance. It feels so close. But even if I reached out, I could never grasp it. I've looked at the stars before. There are unreachable stars and unfulfilled wishes. Nothing of ours remains behind. So someday, my memories of her, even the image of her face, will disappear. And yet, even if I can't ever reach her, something will remain in our hearts. There may be nothing physical left, but we both shared time together and looked up at the same things. If I can remember that, I can believe that we're still together, even across such a great distance. Some things are bound to disappear, but others never will. So I'm gonna keep running. If I push far enough, I might one day reach what I was aiming for. The new beginnings of spring after the end of a harsh winter. I head up the hill under the same blue sky she looked up and saw. The battle is over. This is her final battlefield. The battle that split our country in half and ended with the king's victory. The knight runs to her. The battle is over. The blood-red sunset has faded, and now the darkness of night covers the battlefield. The hill is littered with corpses and curses. All that resentment tries to drag the survivors down with it. Through it all, the knight runs breathless. He grips his horse's reins as the wounded white steed does its best to keep up. The knight and the white horse are the only survivors. Draped over the horse's back is the wounded king.
Oh, Asao, こちらに.
The knight must have wounded himself, but he runs with all his might. The king he serves is on the verge of death. Even after defeating the rival king in a single combat, his king sustained a fatal wound. The knight knows there is no hope here. His king will die soon.
お気を確かに。あの森までたどり着けば必ず。
He calls desperately to his king. Or perhaps the knight truly believes that his king is immortal. So long as they have the guidance of the sacred sword, the king will never perish. With labored breathing, the knight crosses the mountain of corpses and heads to a forest that has not yet been stained in blood. He knows of his king's immortality, so he believes that if he can only escape this cursed battlefield and lead the king somewhere pure, the king's wounds will be healed. Or rather, he hopes. Unlike the other knights, he always believed in his king. The king had always been isolated at court, shunned by the knights, and feared by the people. But the knight was proud of the young king, who never revealed any personal feelings, no matter the situation, and always remained idealistic. The knight did not serve his country, and that is why he entrusted his sword to his king, strove to aid his king, and rose to the position of the king's personal guard despite his young age. The king whose true face can never be seen. The boy tried to be fair and selfless, and did not allow his personal feelings to interfere with his duties. Rather, he hoped that if he could someday get close enough, he could see his king's real face. That is his greatest desire. He wants so much to see his king's true face, not the stern countenance the king bore in the battlefield, but his king's true face, a smiling, laughing, human face. That moment would surely come in court when the king is relieved of all duty. Even the most perfect king cannot be on edge all the time. The knight was proved wrong though. What he learned deified his expectations. He reached the rank of Imperial Guard and stood guard at the king's side. He guarded the king more closely than any knight and always observing the king's behavior. But the moment he wished for never came. His king never smiled. Why does that make him so angry? The king should radiate glory, having achieved such a success. But never once did the king seem at ease, even for a moment. He couldn't stand it. He wanted to believe this shouldn't happen. And so he wished for his king to be rewarded with light. That is yet to be accomplished. The king still remains solitary, and so the knight refuses to accept his king's death. It cannot end here. If it does, this great king will never be rewarded.
お、今はこちらに。すぐに兵を呼んでまいります。
Once they reach the forest, the knight leans his king's body against a large tree. It is a race against time. Even riding hard on horseback, it'll take half a day to bring back the troops they left at the harbor. Any who see the king now would know that the king will not last until dawn.
どうかそれまで辛抱を。 必ず兵を連れて戻ります。
The knight bows to his half-conscious king and returns to his white steed.
ベリビエール。
Before he can leave, the king he thought unconscious calls out to him.
おう、意識が戻られましたか。
少し夢を見ていた。
The king's voice is faint, but there's warmth in it.
夢ですか。
The knight's voice is imploring. The king's life is balanced on the tip of a blade. The darkness will surely take his king if the knight does not respond.
そうだ。あまり見たことがないのでな。貴重な体験をした。
それは。では、どうぞお気遣いなくお休みください。私はその間に兵を呼んでまいります。
The knight's words must have been unexpected.
おう、何かご無礼な点でも。
いや、そなたの言い分に驚いた。夢とは目を覚ました後でも見れるものなのか。違う夢ではなく、目をつむればまた同じものが現れると。
Now it's the knight's turn to be surprised. For a moment, he's at a loss for words. At length, he responds, though he knows there is no truth to what he says.
はい。強く思えば、同じ夢を見続けることもできるでしょう。私にも経験があります。
It's not possible. A dream is a fleeting thing, not something to return to. Even so, the knight lies to his king. It is the first and last time he will do such a thing.
そうか。そなたは博識だな。ベリビエール。
The king's soft voice is admirable. The king's head remains tilted down, not looking up at the knight. The king breathes so softly that it can be barely audible.
ベリビエール。我が命権を持て。
The knight receives his king's final order.
よいか。この森を抜け、あの血塗られた丘を越えるのだ。その先には深い湖がある。そこに我が剣を投げ入れよ。
おお、それは。
The knight knows what that means. The sword in the lake. To relinquish the sword that had protected the king and served as proof of kingship would mean the end of his king.
行くのだ。ことを成し得たのならばここに戻り、そなたが見たことを伝えてほしい。
The king does not take back orders. The knight takes the secret sword and goes over the hill, his indecision weighing heavily on him. And so, 3 times the knight hesitates to follow his king's command. The lake looms in front of him, but he cannot throw the sword away. Doing so means his king will disappear. The knight's unwillingness to part with his king stays his hand until he returns to his king. Once again, the king orders him to throw the sword in the lake. When the knight lies and claims he's thrown the sword into the lake as ordered, his king simply replies, "Do as I have commanded you." To defy the king's order is a great sin for a knight, but he has already done so twice. Each time he stands before the lake, he hesitates at the thought of losing his king. No more. When the knight realizes he cannot alter his king's decision, on his 3rd visit, he hurls the sword into the lake. The sacred sword returns to the lake. A white hand emerges from the water and catches the blade, and the sacred sword vanishes from the world. Wow. That's powerful, man. And the knight finally accepts it. The end of his king. The responsibilities that had so long burdened the knight finally come to an end. By the 3rd time he crosses the hill, the first rays of morning light touch the forest. The ruins of the battlefield now distant. There is no trace of the bloody battle. Only a thin haze covers the hill.
湖に剣を投げ入れてまいりました。剣は湖の婦人の手に。確かに。
At the knight's words, the king opens his eyes.
そうか。ならば胸を張るがよい。そなたはそなたの王の命を守ったのだ。
The knight gives a silent nod to the voice, knowing the speaker is on the brink of death. It's all over. Turmoil will continue to grip the nation. The wars will not end. The day of ruin will come soon. But the king's battle is over, because he, or rather, she fulfilled her role to the very end. The light fades. With everything done, the last of the strength that kept her going is spent.
すまないな、ベリビエール。今度の眠りは少し長く。
She closes her eyes, slowly, as if going to sleep. The morning light spills through the treetops. As the king drifts to her eternal rest, a hush falls over the forest. The knight continues his vigil over the fallen king. The king he wished for, the solitary king attended by only a single knight, and he finally sees the look he hoped for on his king's face. A peaceful sleep. In her last moments, the king finally finds the peace that had so long eluded her. The knight is overjoyed. The knight thanks whoever gave his king such comfort and watches the king with a sense of pride. The heavens are distant, and the clear sky is blue. The battle is truly over.
見ているのですか、アーサーを。
His words ride the wind. The sleeping king appears to sink into the endless blue.
夢の続きを。
A distant dream takes her. The battle is over. Let us put our swords down and rest in the momentary peace. After dozing in a warm dream, a new day will dawn. The days continue on, and we are still following the same star we once saw. Well, alright guys, that there completes the fate route of this game. Honestly, revisiting this game again has been pretty fulfilling, if only because, well, I'm a fan of the Fate series, and let's face it, I was always going to revisit this game eventually. I didn't think it'd be this soon, but either way, I'm thrilled about it. We're still far and away from completing it because we still got 2 more routes to go through again, but otherwise, I hope y'all looking forward to it still because, yep, we got another fun ride to go. So, yep, this is it. Let's see what else this has to offer. There you go, a new route has been unlocked. Saber ending. Completed. Alright guys, thank you again, and if anything else, I'll see you all in the next one.